You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I hope wherever you are in the world and whatever you might be doing, you are doing very well. The bloke you're about to hear from, his name is Andrew Strong. He is the voice, and some might even say the face, of the movie The Commitments. Remember that famous film that was released way back in 1991 or 1992? I had a chat to him ahead of his Australian tour, which took place in March of 2018. Talked about all sorts of things, including a tour, of course. So let's hear what Andrew has to say. Here we go. So, Andrew, you're coming to Australia in March of 2018. So can you tell us about the show that you're bringing?
Yeah, well, basically, I'm coming over in March, and I'm going to be doing a lot of the songs from the Commitments movie, and just basically all the songs what people are familiar with. And I'll throw in a couple of surprises as well. But it's heavily kind of Commitments-based theme. And, that's kind of more or less it, really, you know.
Now, fair enough. And mate, you are obviously aware that you've got a broad fan base here in Australia. So it's been something of a 25-year-long affair. Like, I remember personally my parents taking me to the movies to actually watch the film in 1992 or whenever it came out, so way back in those days. But, mate, what's unique about your relationship with Australian fans?
Well, the first time I went to Australia was in 1992. That was my first tour, and I just remember the first tour. It was just an incredible... It was probably the first proper big tour I ever did, you know. And it was just incredible. I mean, I would have been, 17, 18 then. And 17, I think I was. And it was just amazing. I mean, to go over to Australia at that age and also to tour in the back of, the movie, and obviously the soundtrack was so successful. It was just a great, great time, and I got to meet a lot of great people, and even to this day, they're still great friends of mine, So, so it's just a bit of a love affair, really, what kind of blossomed from then, from that point, and then just over the years, I just did other tours, and so it's great because it's a combination of playing music. It's a combination of kind of having a holiday, and a combination of hanging out with really good friends. So, I mean, what more could you ask for,
Mate, when you put it that way, you're spot on. You're spot on. And, I don't know what it was. It was just one of those things where when the movie came out, it just crossed over a lot of boundaries. I think it, whether you were young or old, or whether you were a fan of music or whether you weren't, the music certainly appealed to Australian audiences. And the movie, certainly appealed to Australian audiences.
Oh, yeah, totally. Well, I think from a social point of view, it definitely hit a lot of hearts there, and a lot of people could relate to that, the struggle of everyday working class, if you're a musician, and, the trials and tribulations you go through being in a band and dealing with egos. And so there were a lot of different elements a lot of people could relate with within the movie, and also, it was funny, and it made people laugh, and the music was great. So, I mean, it's very rare that you kind of, you don't get movies made like that all the time. Hence, us sitting here 27 years later talking about it. And, I mean, I still have people who come up to my shows today. Some people like actually crying because they're like, "Wow, I waited 20 years to see this," and and it's great. It's great to see the longevity of it, and it's also a generational thing. It's like, when you say your folks brought you. I mean, my gigs nowadays, I mean, I have people like, who originally went to see the movie, and then they have kids, and now their kids have kids, and they're introducing them, and they're like, "Oh, you have to go and see this guy live," and which is great. So, I'm very, very, very proud and very honored to be able to go to Australia and all over the world and show my gratitude, which is cool,
Yeah, that's an important point you make, because, look, I am a musician and I play in covers bands. Now, I reckon I've played Mustang Sally I reckon I've played that about 150 to 200 times at this point in time. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's no surest
Yeah, well,
sign.
look, man. You know, yeah. Well, I think it's great. I think it's great. I mean, it's really funny because I was playing a gig there about 2 weeks ago in Dubai, and my drummer showed me a thing on Facebook, and I brought out a live album there a couple of years back. It's called The Commitment Years and Beyond. It's a live thing I did down in the south of France, and there's actually a guy going out doing a tribute to that in Europe, and he's got the shaved hair and all of that. So I mean, it's quite flattering, but in a way, it kind of makes you feel a bit older too, you know.
Was that the song that you thought had the biggest crossover potential to achieve a broad audience?
What Mustang Sally?
Yeah. Was that, when you were recording the album, right, and when you were doing the movie, was that the song that you thought this is going to be the breakout hit? Was that the obvious one when you were doing it?
No, not really, because, like, to be honest with you, I was 16 at the time, and really the sort of stuff I was listening to then at that time, was kind of, a lot of kind of the whole grunge thing kind of coming out. The early 90s, well, probably a little later than 1990. And I was kind of, I was into like Madness and Adam and the Ants and all of that. So soul music was very grown up music for me, So when my father's a singer and he sang a lot of that stuff even before The Commitments was made. He was well into all his soul and stuff. But no, I didn't realize that, this is going to be a big hit. I knew the director, Alan Parker. I knew his previous work, with Pink Floyd, The Wall, and Bugsy Malone, and Mississippi Burning, and all those great movies. So I kind of had an inclination that, we're onto something here, but I, by no means did I at all think that, we'd end up selling, 12 or 14 million records. And, 4 or 5 years ago, I got together with all the original members and we went out and played shows, and we were playing to like 15, 20,000 arenas, and I never thought that would happen. Absolutely not. So I was quite naive when I was making the film, but I definitely... I couldn't tell you after we made the movie that this song is going to be a hit or that's going to be a hit. So
yeah, I've got to tell you, it's up there with. I mean, it's actually in Australia at least, anyway, mate. There's a couple of tracks. There's "Brown Eyed Girl" by Van Morrison. There's that track we just mentioned. There's "The Horses" by Daryl Braithwaite, and you probably know Cold Chisel, an Australian band with Jimmy Barnes. K-San.
Oh yeah. I actually met Ian Moss there. I met Ian Moss there a couple of years back. So I did. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's become a cultural zeitgeist, that song. I mean, I see people in the crowd from 18 to 80. Literally, I've seen that. I play in front of audiences that are that broad, get up out of their chairs and dance whenever we play the opening strains of that song. And what I love about the track, playing it, being a bass player, I can riff. I can do all sorts of really cool stuff underneath it, whilst Kelly, the singer in my band, just has a great voice and she can sing. She can emulate your voice as best as she possibly can. Of course, being a female lead vocal. But we all have a lot of fun when we're singing it, and then the guitarist can do some great blues noodling over the top of it. So it's a very versatile track, mate. I think it's going to be one of those tracks that just keeps on going. Yeah, I mean it's bizarre because as you know, Wilson Pickett did the original version of it, and. Not in any way to be pompous or anything like that. I met Wilson and I had the opportunity to sing with him that song together. But in a way, it kind of probably our version is a much more popular version. I remember when I met Steve Cropper first. Steve Cropper turned around to me and he said to me, "Hey man, I'm just so happy you recorded my song because I needed the money." And I was just blown away by that. I was like, Steve Cropper's telling me that, So, yeah, but definitely. No, I mean, look, that's what music's there for, man. It's universal. And, hey, if it can inspire people to play, and as you're saying, you can riff under it and you can have fun,
well, then that makes me feel that I've done my job, you know.
Yeah, well, I think you own it now. I mean, I don't think think the Commitments and Mustang Sally are interchangeable. I'm sorry to Wilson Pickett there, but I don't think anybody would probably even know, certainly underneath the age of about 50, that it was originally a Wilson Pickett song.
Yeah, that is true, actually, you know.
So, mate, when you started out, of course, you might have been green or what have you, mate. 16, but did you even have an inkling that you'd be working and performing or even touring with some of the top artists in the world, like Rolling Stones and Elton John?
Oh, well, I mean, when I was younger, obviously, that they were dreams for me to come true. I mean, like I come from a musical family. My dad is probably one of the most respected singers in Ireland. I mean, he is. I mean, if you speak to guys out of U2 or anybody and mention Rob Strong, they're like, yeah, man, that guy's a legend, you know. And so, you know, I come from a very, very rock and roll, liberal kind of music background, but also quite disciplined as well. My mother was a bit of a disciplinarian, but in a good way. So, so music was definitely in the blood from a very young age. And, I mean, you know, the thing about the Commitments movie, and it really resonated with musicians, even like yourself. So, I mean, you didn't have to be, and it resonated with a lot of big artists, you know. Like I remember when I played in Adelaide for the first time, back in '92 or whatever, I was in one of these. I was flying to Adelaide. I don't know whereabouts in Australia it was, but I was in one of these private lounges and I met Bryan Adams, and my voice was completely shot out, and I had about 25 more shows to do, you know, because, you know, I was quite naive and stuff. And Bryan Adams, he was a huge fan of the movie and brought me down to his gig that night, and he showed me all these vocal exercises, and then I came down the following night and we sang songs together, and so I mean, it resonated on every level. I mean, on the musician who works in a pub, and from a musician who plays to maybe 100,000 people, you know. So, but yeah, very, very lucky, and very, 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 just very lucky to have those opportunities, you know.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Yeah. Well, mate, it's been great chatting. I better let you go. I think I've got a 15-minute allocation, mate. But yeah, good luck with the rest of the interviews, mate. But, you know, congratulations on a wonderful career to date too, and being so endearing. You've been a great bloke to chat to, and it's always so nice to. I mean, obviously, it had an impact on me when I was a kid, so it's definitely seeped into my psyche and consciousness as a musician.
That's great, man. That's great.
So yeah, mate.
Yeah,
good luck with
great,
it.
Man. Great. Well, look.
Listen,
thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate your time, and have a good day.
Yeah, no worries, mate. I'll try and be in the audience when you guys come down to Australia, anyway.
Yeah, do. If you're come by, please pop by and say hi, man. Yeah.
No, we'll do, mate. No worries. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was my conversation with Andrew Strong of The Commitments. Thank you so much for listening.